Hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm Jay, and after a year of making content on this channel, it's finally time to do a room tour.
I can't wait.
I've been talking about it for a while, and a few of you have asked for it in the comments, and I thought what better time than at the start of a brand new year to lock in stone and take a snapshot of what this room looks like now, and then have another look at it in a year's time after another year of collecting and more content on the channel. So I'm going to do this one fairly ad hoc. I'm not going to script any of this. I'm going to walk around and tell you what's in the room from point to point, and I'll go all the way down and come all the way back. It's going to be a longer video than normal. You'll already know that better than I do at this point, as I'm sure you've already seen the length of the overall finished video. Let's spin the logo and get into the room tour. Let's get into the room tour. I'm going to be filming most of this on my iPhone. This is the iPhone 15 Pro Max. And if you're interested, this little handheld frame here is by Small Rig. And they do a number of these for different phones. It's actually got a Bluetooth shutter button there, but I don't really use that. But it really just helps me quickly mount the iPhone in different places or do little panning shots. So I use this quite a lot for some B-roll. So there's a little bit of the behind the scenes before we've even got going. So I'll head down the room and I'm going to start to look at some of the different things in the gaming end of the space, which is kind of how that end of the room is. And then as we get more this way, it becomes more creative and productive. So as we move down the room, as I say, we've got the gaming space. Now, this is a simple IKEA unit, nothing too fancy. I've got a Philips Ambilight TV. So this is, I think it's a 42. Might be 47, can't remember. And then in front of it, you can see it's turned on at the moment. That's a kind of a comfort monitor. That's actually a 28-inch 4K monitor. It's an old screen of mine, but I didn't want to kind of give it away or stop using it. So I repurposed it as a comfort monitor. The cables to that run all the way down the room, back up to the desk at the other end, which we'll touch on later. And I use that really when I'm streaming, if I want to show people kind of what I'm up to, what I'm doing. And so that when I'm playing on the big TV, I can see what you guys are saying in the chat or what's happening with the stream quality, etc. You'll also notice just above the screen is my second camera. Both of my cameras for filming for both streaming and YouTube content are Canon M6 Mark IIs. Had one of those for quite a long time and decided that actually it would be easier from a consistency point of view to get one more. Simpler for batteries, lenses, swapping things in and out. So this TV is kind of my modern gaming TV. So you'll see we've got the PS5 over there, and my more recently picked up 30th anniversary Pro controller, which I'll touch on later in another video. I've got my PSVR 2, which honestly barely moves off that dock. Not the best investment I've ever made, if I'm honest. I've got the PlayStation Portal, and then randomly next to that you'll notice a Xbox 360 Kinect and the Nikon zoom lens attachment, and that basically makes it easier to play in narrow spaces. And then over here, tucked away behind the big stand here, is the Xbox Series X and Master Chief holding the 20th anniversary Xbox controller. If we then go down into the unit, you can see a recent edition of mine. I'll be talking about this again in a future video, and that is the Gears of War Special Edition Xbox 360 console and controller. And then the Xbox One S. Now the reason that's there is I just basically used it back in the day for kind of Blu-ray. I used to be on my projector, which I don't use anymore, and I've just tucked it down there to keep that consistency of generations of console. Likewise, tucked away over here under the PS5 is a PS3 and a PS4, specifically the Metal Gear Solid Special Edition, for reasons that will become incredibly obvious in a few minutes' time. And then tucked behind the TV is the Legend of Zelda Switch dock and my OLED Switch. And then really tucked behind here is the more recent, I think it's the Wireless Pulse Elite. We're going to be talking about that in a video coming up. And then I did walk past it a second ago. On the wall next to the door into the office is all of these controllers. So these are really just controllers for the consoles that are here, but most of them tend to be kind of special edition ones. So if we come round the light here and start at the top, tucked behind this fairly cheap Kratos axe I got off Amazon for a fancy dress, I've got the Starfield Special Edition Xbox One controller. Just try and focus on that. a second controller for the Xbox 360 Gears of War Special Edition. We've got the Spider-Man controller for PS5, a vanilla PS5 controller. And then we've got the, I think it would have been the 20th anniversary? 25th? Maybe the 25th anniversary? Correct me in the chat if I got that wrong, but I think it's the PS4 Special Edition designed to look like the PS1. We've got the Day 1 edition, just about make that out on the front of the Xbox controller there. That's the Day 1 edition Xbox One controller. We've got the Metal Gear Solid PS4 controller, and then we've got a Switch Pro controller. I'm not sure what that Xbox controller was. I actually picked that one off second hand on eBay. It was sold as not working, but I just cleaned it and it works absolutely fine. And then a couple of additional Switch controllers. We've got the GameCube-esque controller and then a SNES one from 8-Bit Do. So then, as we kind of pan back, we've got then kind of some of the collectibles. I'm just going to try and get the camera to focus. There we go. And I'm going to go into each one of these one by one. So let's start over here on the right. We've got obviously the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and these are the Turtles from, I think they're from like the comic book Acura early comic book days when they didn't actually have distinguishing colours on their bandanas. We've also got Krang, my original from the 90s, from the original Turtles line of toys. Krang! And then tucked behind are some of the Super Nintendo and NES games. So we've got Turtles in Time, Tournament Fighter, the original on the NES, as well as my original Baxter Stockman, and then a couple of the Switch titles, the Cowabunga Collection and then Shredder's Revenge, which is a fantastic love letter to all things Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Above that, we've then got my Power Rangers. So this is my original Dragon Zord. In its box from my youth. I remember my granddad queuing outside Argos to get one of these when stock was expected to be really low pre-Christmas. And then in front of it is the original Megazord. I recently found him, or most of him. You'll see that we're missing just one of the Zords, and in fact just the body, and it's the Mastodon. So I'm missing the Mastodon and Sword. They weren't for some reason in the stuff that I salvaged from my mum's house when she moved recently. So if you happen to have one and you want to sell it, then let me know, get in touch. We've then got a little messy shrine to Apple. So I'm a big Apple fan, in case you didn't already know. So this is a Steve Jobs sort of collectible that I imported back in the day. Let's get that to focus again, from China. He was originally released as a pre-order from Japan. Apple's lawyers soon shut that down, and then he re-emerged for sale from China. So I picked one of those up. I'm a big Steve Jobs fan in terms of, you know, his vision and his creative brain. And then around it's a variety of old Apple gadgets, all of them are pretty much mine. So that's an original Apple Watch, iPod, third generation, I think it was the picture one, an old phone up there, as well as a few boxes from phones past, and there are some phones in them, so I think there's a 4 and maybe even a 5. And then there's the autobiography, which if you haven't read it, it's basically the history of computers and a guy called Steve. It's well worth a watch. Then we've got Earthworm Jim, another big favourite of mine in terms of character. Groovy! Love the original games. So you've got the Super Nintendo 1 and 2 there in protected boxes. There's the unboxed N64 game, which frankly is terrible. I did a retro quest on that. If you haven't checked it out, go and have a look. It's an awful game. And then there's the DVD of the 2 seasons of the cartoon that were released, which I absolutely loved. Earthworm Jim is voiced by Dan Castellaneta, at least the English version is, and he's the voice of Homer for those who don't know who that is. And then that, right at the top there, is actually one of the first things I ever 3D printed and painted. Not great, but it's a little Earthworm Jim bust I found online, which just sits there proudly. Then we'll hop down to this little X-Men shelf. So the back there is a book all about the art of the 90s cartoon series. Excuse me, absolute favourite of mine, as well as X-Men 2 The Clone Wars on the Mega Drive. That's my boxed version from when I was a child, as well as these little metal miniature figures, which again were mine from my childhood. And then on the side here are some special edition X-Men pin badges that I picked up from the Disney store a few years ago when they were on sale. Above it, another childhood object of mine is again Spider-Man from the 90s. What a theme tune that was. But this is Kingpin's Crime Central Tower and a couple of random figures which all appear to have fallen over, and I'd not noticed before I started filming. But that is just a little play toy that I happened to find when going through the loft at my mother's again. And then just to finish off the X-Men, you might have noticed this when I was panning around the TV earlier on. This is from Displate. I've got a few Displates around the office that you'll see as we go around. This is actually a new X-Men 97 one, but I just love the artwork and it plays really nicely with what's above it, so I really like that. Then we move to the busy wall, and this one's going to take a little bit of work. So I'm going to pan back first and just kind of show you the full wall. This is what you're used to seeing in the background of the videos. Just get that to focus again. But then I'll take you piece by piece and just explain what's here. So fundamentally it is the retro wall. So we've got this Sony Trinitron in the middle. I picked that up on eBay for £20, which I collected from a guy in Derby. It was not brand new, it was new to him, and he was the only owner. It came with the stand, specifically designed to sort of bolt into the bottom of the TV, and it works perfectly, and it has done ever since I bought it. I'm sure at some point it'll give up the ghost, but it's a really good TV. Everybody knows the Trinitrons are some of the best from back in the day, and it plays really nicely with all these consoles. On the top you'll see a couple of figures, but predominantly what this is a splitter. So this allows me to have a variety of the different consoles. I'll just get that to focus. There we go. You can see some of the consoles that I've got hooked up, and I can hot swap between them. And those consoles are all placed around the outside of that TV. So this is just IKEA Kallax units, by the way, and drawers full of games underneath there. So those are all the Super Nintendo games. But if I come down here, we'll start kind of about halfway up with the PlayStation Shrine. So in here we've got my original PS2 from my childhood, not hooked up. We've got the PS2 Slim. We've got the PS1, what would they class it as? It was the Classic. When they were doing the mini consoles, and that was a trend, and they were trying to copy Super Nintendo's success, and they released the god-awful product that was the Sony version. It was £100 when it was first released, quickly got discounted, and then I think I paid £16 for that on Amazon on a hot deal. Then we've got an original PS1 underneath. Not my original, that one, it lives above all of this. I'll show you that shortly, but I picked that up before I realised that my original from my childhood still existed. And then I've got a PSP here and a PS Vita. I owned a PSP back in the day. That's not my original one. I never owned a Vita, and I do like it though. I have played it a few times. Then we've got a PS2 that I actually got through a car boot sale, or a friend of mine picked up for me. If you've seen one of my more recent videos around pickups from a car boot, then you'll have seen that and heard me talk about it. We've got a Mega Drive, my original Mega Drive 2 from my youth. My Sega Saturn, or at least my granddad's Sega Saturn. He bought it for us when we were kids. And then a Sega Dreamcast at the bottom. And then tucked to the right, we've got the Master Chief Collection, Collector's Edition from Halo 3. That is, I got that on eBay to accompany a disc that I found in a charity shop, which then sent me down a rabbit hole, and I ended up buying that. Above that, we've got an OG Xbox with a pirate from Sea of Thieves. I think that was a pre-order back when the game first released. A couple of the Cuphead characters, another great game, and then the box from that Starfield controller we saw earlier on. And above that, we've got a little Spider-Man shrine. So I've got the statue here from Spider-Man on the PS4, the Collector's Edition. I'll be honest and say I was a little disappointed with that. When it came in the box, it had a slip on the top that told you not to look at the statue until you'd finished the game. And when I finished the game and took it out of the box, I was a little bit disappointed, I'm not going to lie. It's pretty cool when I look at it now. It's got all the different characters and the enemies from that game sort of wrapped and coiled around the base, and then Spider-Man atop it, but I just didn't think it was that great. Next to it is the Steelbook edition from Spider-Man 2 on the PS4, and then tucked in the back there we've got Super Nintendo, Spider-Man and the X-Men, which is an interesting game I remember from my youth. Got the Collector's Edition, or limited edition of the Ultimate Spider-Man on the PS2. I know that sleeve is a popular one with a lot of collectors. And then my copy of Maximum Carnage from my childhood. That was found in a box amongst a bunch of other Mega Drive games, and I was thrilled to find it. I think it's probably the most valuable game in my collection at around £250, but that's not what I paid for it, and I never would, frankly. And that little spider bot is actually from the Disney parks, Disneyland Paris, Marvel's Avengers area, and it's all linked to the Spider-Man ride they've got there. We'll then pan across to the other consoles. So on the other side here, we've got my GameCube with the Game Boy Advance, the Game Boy Player attached to the bottom, as well as a little shrine to Mario. So you'll notice then we've got a Wavebird as well as the Game & Watch, which was released. That's not an original one, that's the special edition that was done a few, well, maybe 5-10 years ago now. And then down here, some user guides, strategy guides, sorry, from a variety of eras. We've got Mario Odyssey at the back there, all the way through to, I think that one at the front there is Super Mario 64. Beneath that, we've got an NES and a Super Nintendo. Neither one of those are from my youth. I've picked those up over the years, but that is my original Nintendo 64 from back in the day. And then below that is my original Wii. And then right below that, very randomly placed, are a bunch of wrestling videos. I mentioned these in a video where I found these in my mum's loft, amongst a few other things that are in the room now. But I just wanted to display those somewhere because they do bring back memories. And I do have a VHS that can play them. Tucked over here then are some really random shelves. So this is just a bunch of Hulk figures. I'm a bit of a Hulk fan. And then we've got Austin Powers.
Yeah, baby, yeah!
And the trilogy Blu-ray there. Buzz Lightyear that has memories and is one I'm attached to. And then this, which I love, from Jurassic Park. I'm not a Funko Pop lover by any stretch of the imagination. But this is Ian Malcolm in his sexy Ian Malcolm pose from Jurassic Park.
No, that's crazy. You're out of your mind. He's absolutely out of his mind.
And when I found out that had been released, I had to get one. It was an exclusive, I think, to an American chain store like Best Buy, something like that. So we'll move up the layer then to the top of the stuff that sits above the television. This is my little God of War shrine. So we've got the collector's edition statue there from the new God of War on the PS4. We've got a Kratos statue there as well, and a little Nendroid that a friend got me, and then a bunch of the games tucked away at the back there from the PS2 right through to PS4. Next to that, one of my favourite game series of all time, Gears of War. So we've got the collector's edition there from Gears of War 3, the statue of Marcus Phoenix, as well as a bunch of the other games at the back there. And then we move up, we've got a little PlayStation shelf, or a bit of a mixed bag shelf really, to be honest. We've got the Horizon Zero Dawn statue, great game series, thoroughly enjoyed those. We've got the Uncharted Collector's Edition, and we've got the Bioshock Remastered trilogy, I think it is. And behind that, we've got Point Blank and the Namco gun, as well as a little PlayStation Lite. And then we've got we've got Witcher and Cyberpunk. So I was trying to remember the name of the studio. CD Projekt Red. There we go. Got there in the end. So we've got a couple of bits there to kind of nod to those games, and on the back there you'll also notice a Cyberpunk strategy guide. And then we'll go right to the top. Up there we've got my Nintendo 64 box from my console that you've just seen. We've got a Mario paint. It's not mine from my youth, but I did rebuy it in excellent condition with all the inserts. Loved that game as a kid, spent hours making rubbish art and music on that. That is in fact my Super Game Boy from my youth. And then next to that, on top of a smaller Trinitron, which I'll talk about in a second, we've got a SNES game converter. Just pan back a little bit, and you can see here an original DVD combo, not DVD, sorry, DVD and VHS combo, sitting underneath a 14-inch Trinitron. I actually bought that Trinitron before winning the big one, and I honestly didn't think I'd win the big one at £20. It was a bit of a throwaway bid. I'd already got this one in the house. It works perfectly fine. Obviously it's a good bit smaller, but that's how I played a lot of my games as a kid. It was on a smaller screen. I didn't have the luxury of a big TV like the one you've just seen. In my room it would have been 14-inch, maybe 20-inch max. Next to that, a couple of DVD sets, so some Turtles there, and then the full collection of the Thundercat.
Thunder! 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 Thundercats!
That's another series that I love. And then over here is my original Ghostbusters 2 VHS dug out of a box, in front of the Ghostbusters Ecto-1 Lego and an AT-AT. And then moving across, we've got a little Zelda shrine here. So there's a whole bunch of Zelda games in here behind those statues and that amiibo. from the 3DS back to GameCube. I don't have the Super Nintendo. Oh, in fact, do I? No, I think I do have the Super Nintendo. It's the NES I don't have Zelda for, but it's not up here at the moment. A couple of Switch games and a collector's edition 3DS of Majora's Mask at the back there as well. And the last couple of cubes. So we've got a little Sega shrine here, a little bit of a mixed bag again. We've got Zool, another Avengers game. We've got Sonic holding their Robocop versus Terminator, a little plushy Sega controller, and then another one of those classic consoles. This is one of two Pokemon areas. So this is kind of earlier Pokemon. So there's some strategy guides at the back there. You can see my originals. These are again mine from my youth. Pokemon Yellow and Blue, as well as Pokemon Stadium. There's the special edition Pokemon Game Boy Color. A few amiibos there, and a little plushie of Snorlax, who's one of my favorites. And then another little Nintendo shrine. So this is two of the classic consoles. A few amiibo and the Donkey Kong Jungle Beats pack, as well as a bit of a beaten up, but I quite like the beating on it. It's not mine, but I bought it because I just like that kind of the rough around the edges. It makes it feel old, but at the same time, you know, it adds to the nostalgia. That at the back there as well is the Mario Kart Switch. Mario, so that's the one that you could connect to the Switch and then race around your house in kind of real life. I do have the Luigi one boxed as well, which we'll come to later on. And then panning back across the middle, the last two shelves above the TV, we've got a little Disney shrine here. So
Genie of the Lamp!
So Genie is my favourite Disney character, and Disney means a lot to our family. We've been a few times, and it's been a place for some great memories. Scrooge McDuck, again, another character I loved as a kid, and then Aladdin and Jungle Book on the Mega Drive. And then on the left here, Greek mythology, something I've always loved. So I thoroughly enjoyed the Assassin's Creed Odyssey series. Sorry, game, not series. The Assassin's Creed series, but Odyssey was the Greek one, and that's the collector's edition statue that came with that game, which I think is fantastic. Really dynamic, the way he's kind of like lurching forward off Medusa's head. So that's that back wall. So a couple of things I didn't mention there, just a couple of boxes at the top. Again, you've seen these in previous videos. That's my original PlayStation 1 inbox, the Super Mario Brothers U inbox, and then the actual box that went with the Mega Drive that you've already seen. So that's that kind of the two gaming areas. I'm either gaming over here on the modern consoles or kind of over there on the retro. And then as we start to pan around, then we're getting more into the sort of display territory. So we've got a little stool here that kind of gets swapped in and out with my office chair, depending on what I want to sit on when I'm down here. And then we've got this big fella. I guess they're kind of the biggest piece and probably the most expensive piece in the collection. Or in fact, unquestionably the most expensive piece. If you haven't seen that video from, I would say April last year when I got this guy, go check it out. I'd wanted one for 20 years. I'd seen them in places like Game Station, and I was thrilled to get an opportunity to buy him. He is big, he takes up a lot of space, he's as tall as me, if not slightly taller, but I love it. And yeah, it always gets questions when people come in and see the office. They always want to know about him. Tucked behind him though, there's a couple of shelves to show you. So here we've got a little picture of Mario that I had printed years ago, and that's kind of travelled with me between 2 or 3 homes now. Just love it. Great piece of art. And then down here we've got PlayStation Logitech wheel, which I predominantly bought to play with Gran Turismo in VR, but quickly worked out that made me feel very, very sick. We've got a PS2 Guitar Hero original controller, which sometime I will try and get all those awful stickers off. And then DJ Hero 1 and 2 and the collector's edition sort of deck and stand there in that black case, and next to a dance mat, which was bought for my wife, who was a big dance mat fan back in the day. We then have our second Pokemon shelf. So I mentioned there was some more Pokemon still to come. We've got a few more modern games, so a few more of the Switch games on here, Game Boy Advance, as well as Silver and Gold. Again, those were my original box copies from my youth. We've got a fantastic statue of Mewtwo, which I love, is one of my favourite Pokemon, and then the Pokeball that came out with for the Switch with Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee. Doesn't really serve purpose for anything else but those games, but you know, a novelty thing to own. Up here, in a bit of a stretch for me, we've got my Simpsons collection from my youth. So a couple of those comics at the back, or ones that I remember taking a trip into the local town centre and picking those up from a comic book store. We didn't have many places like Forbidden Planet when I was young, so the one city that did have it in was a good old bus journey away, but it was worth it, and I love those. A couple of the games which are tough as balls on the SNES and the NES there.
Don't have a cow, Dad.
So Bart's Nightmare, Bart and the Aliens, and Krusty's Super Fun House. A bunch of the figures that I bought when I was younger, and then behind them, just tucked away, again, a couple of the PC titles that I had back in the day. I'm sure they don't work now, but they were great. So, getting on to some big collections now. So as I pan back around the room, we'll start with this unit at the bottom here. If you haven't seen the video, these two centre boxes here are filled with a variety of old Edge magazines from back in the day. I collected those from a lady in Edinburgh several months ago, back in August now. Really enjoy flicking through those, and probably will go down the route at some point of buying more of them. A few additional gaming books tucked away here. There's some more strategy guides on the right. And we've got there the N64 and GameCube anthology books. Fantastic books. I'm desperate to get the Super Nintendo one, but can't find it in stock anywhere. So if you know anyone, let me know. We've got a little TV stand here. This is where I just tend to put things like the mouse when I'm streaming, or a drink, or a controller when I'm playing on my own. Banjo-Kazooie holds my TV remote for me. He does a good job of that. Got some Assassin's Creed statues tucked away down there. I love those. And then on top, we've got a bit of a Nintendo shrine. So on the left here, we've got a statue that I picked up very recently of Luigi, and I cannot remember the name of the ghost. It's some sort of clever play on Up and a Ghoul. Someone can put it in the comments below. Some Game Boys. So at the back there is my OG Game Boy from my childhood. I did also own a lime green Game Boy Color, which is where I played a lot of Pokemon on. That's not my original one, but I did have to rebuy that because of that very reason. Next to it is the atomic purple one. Just love transparent consoles. I think that's a real missed thing these days. Back in the day, that was such a popular thing to do. And I would like to get one of the N64s in a similar style at some point in the future. We'll come back to this Lego in a second. Over here, again, a couple more handhelds. We've got a Game Boy Advance at the back there. Again, you'll notice it's transparent. The Cobalt Blue SP. I did own one of those as my youth, but that's not my original. That's my wife's Nintendo DS, which at some point I had to take the whole thing apart to replace the shoulder buttons, which were notoriously fragile. That was a project in itself, trying to take all of the different ribbon cables and everything out to replace that. Probably the first time I ever did anything like it, but thoroughly enjoyed it. And then we've got my 3DS over here, being held so very well by Mario. A couple of VHSs in the background, you'll have seen those in that recent that Loft Find video as well. And then just to conclude that shelf, we'll just touch on this Lego. So I not long ago, back end of last year, left my job of nearly 10 years and moved on to my next step in my career. And my fantastic colleagues at the time all put together and got me this Lego NES set as a leaving gift, which was absolutely brilliant. Thoroughly enjoyed building that kind of over Christmas last year. Super nostalgic, but also great memories of some great people. If you're watching, thank you for that. And then tucked away over here is a little Final Fantasy shrine. So I've put Final Fantasy VIII Pride and Place at the front because that is my favourite Final Fantasy game, controversially.
How you say? Come at me, bro.
7 and 9 just behind it, and then you've got Final Fantasy Advent Children on the PSP, and then the PS2 titles, Final Fantasy X, and I think it's 12, but I can't get back there to check. Final Fantasy X was probably my second favourite in that collection, again, somewhat controversially. Now we're going to move up to Metal Gear Solid Land. So I think I've talked about this multiple times on the channel. This is kind of my favourite game series by some way. And you can see just above there, before we get into the figures and the collection of games, these are some of the disc plates that I picked up at the time when I was kind of tarting this area up. And if I just pan over here, we'll go right to left. So we've got Metal Gear Solid collection on the PS3. And behind that is a Metal Gear Solid version of the board game Risk. I've never opened it or played it. I will at some point. I'm not precious about keeping it sealed, just haven't really had a need. We've then got some of the Play Arts Kai figures. We've got the Raiden special edition that came with the PS3 game, and we've got, well, not Solid Snake, it's just Snake, isn't it? Naked Snake from Metal Gear Solid 5 and Ground Zeroes, as well as the special edition Ground Zeroes statue in the middle. I've then got one of the rubber ducks. This is Ocelot. This was bought for me as a gift by an old podcast compatriot, Robbie, which is a fantastic addition to the collection. We've got some of these minis, which again I kind of dug out of my collection from my youth. And then these little statues across the front here. These are quite expensive and I would like to complete the collection, but some of them are crazy prices. And I picked these up from a seller who was selling them all separately. And I curse it because I missed out on a handful of them on eBay at the time. He was selling them all individually. So I've kind of got half a collection. I would like to get some more. And just tucked behind him, them are the Metal Gear Solid 2 figures. These were the ones, McFarlane's toys, and Metal Gear Ray was the one that you put together from the component parts that came with these other figures in the collection. And then behind them are all of the games. So I think I've got every game in the series except Metal Gear Solid on the NES. But you can see there we've got Metal Gear Solid 4, we've got Metal Gear Solid 5 over there in the Steelbook, Metal Gear Revengeance, as well as then some of the PSP titles, which I have to admit I never really played back in the day. I did start with Metal Gear Acid and then thought this is rubbish, to be honest. And then when they got good with Metal Gear Solid, was it Portable Ops? No, yeah, Portable Ops. I never played those, so maybe a missed opportunity there to enjoy a much beloved game. Then we come across to some of the PS2 titles, so we've got the special edition version of Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater, which was Subsistence, and then the original next to it. Likewise, then we've got Metal Gear Solid 2, just going to try and come around there a little bit, it's quite difficult. We've got Substance and then the original. And then just in front of them, we've got this model kit that I bought and assembled of Metal Gear X.
Metal Gear. Metal Gear. The Metal Gear. 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 Metal Gear.
Which I think is absolutely brilliant. You can see the scale if I just kind of zoom in there as best I can. That is an unpainted pilot. I think it's meant to be Liquid Snake. And there is a miniature of Solid Snake somewhere, but he's kept safe. We're too safe because I don't remember where it is. We've got an Android, again, the second one in the room, and they're the only two. And then behind there, we've got PS1, Metal Gear Solid, and the VR missions, as well as the GameCube remake Twin Snakes. We've got a Japanese import of the PS1 game, which I just liked the cover art on, and then you've got Metal Gear Solid on the Game Boy. And then tucked behind that, we've got a soundtrack, as well as the PC version of Metal Gear Solid in the big box, which I really like. To the left of that, we've got the Metal Gear Solid Snake Amiibo and Snake's Revenge on the NES, as well as the VHS that I bought from, which was the trailer that was produced as part of, I think it was PSM magazine, and then a whole pile of books all to do with Metal Gear Solid. So I'll just try and call these out. These are all strategy guides, the back here, for 5 right the way back to Metal Gear Solid and then Revengeance. I've got an Art of Metal Gear Solid 2 book, which my friend bought me years ago, probably doesn't even realise I still own. There's the little insert that came with the statue, which we just touched on. And then these are the comic books that they made for Metal Gear, and they're all signed by the author. So I made sure when they came out to pre-order them, and every one of those has been signed. And then there's a couple of books here. There's Hideo Kojima's autobiography, which is a brilliant read if you're interested in the guy and the games that he's made. And then next to it is his Metal Gear Solid, the Magnus Opum, which is another book all about the, not written by him, but written about him. And then we've got Meryl here on card. The only on-card figure I have. If I could get a few more of these, and I might pick them up over time, I probably would, but I'm not too worried about buying figures on card. Before we move any further, I'm just going to pan right up to the top here to show you some of the board games that live in here. So I'm not going to go into these in any great detail. If there's any that catch your eye, then that's great. I will just call out one, which was this Star Wars Galactic Battleground.
Space is no longer safe. In Star Wars Galactic Battle, put a strategic battle plan into place.
0309.
Identify,
Star Destroyer.
isolate,
Meet Mr.
and
Lake.
incinerate your enemy. Electronic Galactic Battle with 20 authentic ships. Batteries not included.
I actually owned that as a kid. It's not my original. And I had this urge to show my children Battleships, the board game, and decided to, it brought back the memories of that game, and I decided to buy it. And yeah, I've got a mint copy off eBay, and I'm thrilled about it, and I'd like to play that with the kids. Moving slightly across, and I'm not going to go through all these cupboards, by the way. So in most of these cupboards, there just is, in some instances, is books, there's games in one of them, so this is kind of all predominantly kind of like Switch games, PS5, etc. I didn't mention earlier that, you know, I think I did mention briefly that some of these have got some cartridge-based games in that go with the retro stuff. I want to show you this little shelf, so I'm just going to balance around my drum kit. 2 Wipeout soundtracks. Love the music from Wipeout, and there was a brilliant documentary by the YouTube channel No Clips all about the music of Wipeout, which is what then kind of urged me to buy them. There's a few art books just tucked behind there that came with the various collector's editions over the years, and then a raft of Resident Evil games for PS2 and PS4 predominantly, as well as a PS5 in there as well. And then right down here, a bit more Resident Evil. We've got the archives. There's like a book all about Resident Evil, the franchise. I think that's Nemesis, or maybe it's not. Someone will correct me in the comments. And then Resident Evil 1, 2 and 3 on the PlayStation 1 as well. And then finally, right below that, fantastic and underrated game series, Titanfall, the collector's edition. I do have in my loft, and I haven't got space to display it, the collector's edition statue that they brought out with that. It's absolutely huge and it's absolutely brilliant. Just too big to display. One day I'll find a way to get it back down. Panning up, we've got some more strategy guides. These are various Zelda games, and I've got you can see the Breath of the Wild and the Tears of the Kingdom collector's editions, massive books. They are fantastic. Right above there, if you can just about see it, is a statue from, I think it's Tekken 6, the collector's edition. I might have that wrong. It's Hayachi, and the guy whose name has now escaped me. My brain's saying Yakuza. I know that's not right, but anyway, you know who it is. As well as a Mario Kart remote control car up there, which my son loves. More gaming books, so a variety of things in here. Supercade is a brilliant book, and there's a couple of other books tucked behind this thinking guy. I'll just sort of bring him forward a second. These are great reads. So Control Freak by Cliff Bleszinski. He's a polarizing character, but a fascinating book, and you know that guy had a hard life before he got famous. So you know he might be come across a bit of a dickhead sometimes, but it's worth reading that. I honestly believe. You know, he's a really interesting character, and just seeing where the inspiration for Gears came from was great. You've got Disrupting the Game by Reggie Fils-Aimé. That's not an essential read in my opinion. It was okay. It was a bit of a self-help management guide in the end, which is not really what I wanted. And then Ask Iwata, which is another kind of inspirational book about him. Little piece of artwork here of Charizard and my brain's gone blank again. It's not War Turtle, Blastoise. There we go, in a kind of Japanese art style. And then another collection here of Gears of War books. So again, strategy guides for the mainline games, up to 4 so far. Don't think I've got 5 yet, if there even is one. And then a bunch of the books which I thoroughly enjoyed reading back in the day between games while we were waiting for releases, that really fleshed out the story and bridged the games. Really, really cool. Let's step back a little bit. So in front of that then, we are now out of the game section and into other random bits in the office. So this is my electric drum kit. I cannot play it. I am learning very, very slowly, but hope to get there with it one day. Really good little kit as a sort of starter set. It's by, I'm going to mispronounce this, but it's Alesis, I think it is. If you're looking to get into drums and you want something that doesn't annoy your neighbours, that might be the way to go. Then we've got my little shrine to wrestling. So no secret, I'm a WWE fan. Got back into it in the last few years. Used to love it as a kid when it was the WWF. And these two sort of soft toys, these plushies, were mine and my brother's when we were kids. I had the Hulk and he had Macho Man. I had the belt, which is Ultimate Warrior's White Winged Eagle for my 40th birthday. As part of a kind of WWE focused celebration, I got to go to Vegas, not Vegas, LA even, and go to WrestleMania, which was a bit of a dream come true. And then below that is a little IKEA glass cabinet with all of my now nicely cleaned classic Hasbro wrestling figures.
WWF figures give you the fury of the Hitman and the bite of the Bulldog. Horseman's laying down the law.
The Undertaker will bury those stiffs.
Not with these WWF figures running wild. Each sold separately, dig it?
Again, these are all from my youth. I've not bought any of these. And tucked at the back are some sort of games, and so that's the Blu-ray from my finger. There it is. That's the Blu-ray from the WrestleMania I went to, and then you've got No Mercy, probably one of the best wrestling games ever made on the N64. More figures again, and tucked away at the back there is WWE All-Stars on the 360, another great kind of arcadey game. WCW NWO Revenge. So, you know, that's where THQ were making their wrestling games before WWE barged in. More figures, and we've got down here 2 Mega Drive games, again back from my youth, and then the last shelf has another PS2 title on it, and yet more wrestling figures. I'm going to spin, oh sorry, I'm going to just finish off, sorry, I've just noticed here the ring. I bought this and refurbished it when I got these figures out and discovered them. That was really nostalgic, restringing that and giving that a good clean down. I remember that ring fondly. Many hours spent gathered around that, bashing these figures together and creating arenas out of cardboard and God knows what. This is the Xbox 360 Guitar Hero controller. I've got all the games in the mainline series, as well as a bunch of plastic in boxes up in my loft. And then I'm not going to get to the desk just yet, because I'm going to spin us around and show you something a little bit different. So this is my kind of crafting space. So I got back into model painting quite hard during COVID. As so many people did, I revisited hobbies. I kind of bought all this setup here, bought all new paints, took out my old brushes, bought some new brushes, and started doing model painting. I didn't really achieve much. I've not painted many. I did paint this Hulk. So this was a kind of cheap and cheerful action figure back in the day. I painted him up and kind of gave him a bit of a custom job. Really like that, really proud of that. You know, I'm not saying it's brilliant, but you know, I was getting back into a hobby I'd not touched for a long time. Then as I go up, we've got a little bit more up here on the shelves. So we've got a little Stan Lee nod there. Marvel, big part of my life, especially the first 10 years of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's gone a bit off the rails since then, in my opinion, but that's just me. Got a big Hot Toys Hulk up there, as well as that Slimer that I actually painted that on some cardboard years ago for a friend who was doing a music video on his YouTube channel and was doing a Ghostbusters cover on the drums. And I popped that in the background, and I've still got it to this day. We've got the Assassin's Creed Black Flag collector's edition statue there as well. That is The Darkness. They did a tour, let's say 20th anniversary again, but I might have that wrong, of their original album, signed by the band. Picked that up when I went to see them. And then a few odds and sods here. So there's some collector's cards there from 1000, another YouTuber artist who made those. Here's the models I actually got round to painting. If the camera will even attempt to focus on those, it does. So again, you can see some of the Marvel Crisis Protocol figures there. And then ignore the tank at the back. I painted that as a child, but then these little guys at the front here were again ones that I painted in lockdown. Really need to do more on that, but hey ho. You'll also have spotted a VR headset. That's my fairly new purchase. Picked up a Quest 3. Just can't justify the Apple Vision Pro. It's far too expensive, as much as the Apple fanboy in me wants to buy one. But that Quest 3 is really impressive for what it costs, and looking forward to getting more use out of that, maybe making some content for the channel. I won't get into the dumping ground that is under that desk. There's just so many arts and crafts materials, iFixit kits, soldering guns, an airbrush. Just, it needs sorting, frankly. Got a mini fridge and a little printer. Again, some more tools and storage and bits and pieces under there. I'm going to quickly pan past these games. You'll see these in future videos coming soon, as well as this really cool Xbox 360 Mega Bloks Lego rip-off set. Then got some of my camera equipment, so as well as some cool signs. I got that Tron marquee from Disney World. We've got some cameras there, lots of cables, batteries, lights, audio equipment, lenses, and then tucked right back here next to the boiler of all things is a little Mario Piranha plant. And then up here, again, some more crafting tools, as well as my model pile of shame, which are even more Marvel Crisis Protocol models that I've yet to paint. And then tucked right down the very corner next to the Infinity Gauntlet are my 3D printer and curing station, which don't get anywhere near as much use as I might like. We'll finish with the desk, but we're going to pan around the top here just to finish things off. So up here are some tubs where I keep more of the game collection. So we've got PS2, Nintendo, PS1, Dreamcast, you know, the works up here. Panning round, we've got more accessories, so there's a whole tub there dedicated to almost exclusively Nintendo controllers, and then PlayStation, and all sorts of extras up there. More cables when I need them, as I often do. Yet more games, so PS PS1, PS3 and PS4, just trying to read the sign, as well as some PSP in there, some Xbox One, again more peripherals and cables, and then the last 2 tubs of games, which are all predominantly Xbox generations. And then I'll pan down and we'll finish with what I see when I'm filming and my kind of editing view. So a couple of more disc plates. I really love that Japanese wave, by the way. I'm a bit obsessed with that. So you can see that we've got a really cool King Koopa one. Got a big Hulk poster behind there. And then this is my desk. So if I just pan back a little bit, you'll see, you'll see Master Chief tucked away in the corner there. You'll also see the Venom statue from Metal Gear. Entirely wrong. It's not Metal Gear at all. It's from Spider-Man 2. But yeah, so on my desk here I've got 2 Elgato key lights. In the middle up here you'll see the teleprompter, all unscripted, and then of course there's me. Hello. That's my ultra-wide monitor, which I bought about a year ago now. Absolutely love that. Absolutely worth the investment. My Mac, which I do my editing on, and then my desktop PC is kind of tucked away, suspended under the desk. Ignore the nest of cables. I've tried to tidy it as best I can, just can't get on top of it. I've got a Steam Deck even, and then a HomePod back there for playing music, and then I've got Lamo tucked away as well. And then, as I said, behind that teleprompter is my second Canon M6 Mark II, and then all my audio normally, when I'm not using my roving mic here, is done on my Blue Yeti, which usually does a really good job. This is a sit-stand desk, by the way, so it is on, it's a simple Amazon job with a kitchen worktop strapped to the top of it from Wix, so nothing too fancy. And then I've added bits over the time, so that little kind of metal filing cabinet I added, got that on Amazon, a little desk shelf I made out of the cut-off from the wood, and that's just on some runners, again, probably from Amazon. And then tucked away down the side is a walking pad slash kind of under-desk treadmill, which I've been using since lockdown to get fit. And I think that's everything really, so I'm going to kind of bring us back to the main camera, stop that recording, and yeah, hopefully that's been interesting. Hopefully you've got a good look around and there's stuff in here that's, you know, reminded you of your childhood or got you excited about stuff that you used to love when you were younger or still love now if you're anything like me. If there's anything you want to know more about, or you'd like to see me do a focus video on, or talk in more depth about, or maybe even give you some stories, then I'm happy to do that. I am conscious that this video is already, somewhere in the region of like 30 odd minutes long, so you know, you probably don't need those stories now. But I hope you found it useful, you know, to kind of see a bit more detail about what it is that I spend my time in and around. This is my kind of remote working office, as well as my studio, as well as my place for gaming. So I spend quite a lot of time in here, and that can be a problem sometimes. I'm not going to lie. You know, when you're in here all day for work, sometimes you don't want to be in here all night and play, which does mean that at times I don't maybe get the best use out of my gaming space. But you know, it is what it is. It's a compromise, and I'm very lucky to be able to work remotely, like so many people are now post-COVID. So anyway, I'm going to leave the video there. I hope you found it really useful and interesting to kind of tour the man cave. If you did, then please give it a like. If you've got this far and you haven't already subscribed, then please do that as well. It really does help grow the channel. I'm trying to get up to 500 subscribers at some point this year. Had a really nice little push of maybe 10 or so extra subs as a result of my recent nomination for YouTuber of the Month. If you haven't seen that video, please go back and vote if you haven't already. If you're new here as a result of that, I hope you found this interesting. There will be proper gaming content to come in the future. But yeah, please let me know what you thought, what you liked the best, what, like I said, resonated with you, which bits did you enjoy seeing the most in the comments below. I'd love to kind of engage you know, with everyone on that and kind of have some back and forth and some chats about it. And I'll leave it there, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.